Today we'll be installing a combination 4-in-1 firmware known as Unified Blue on the OUI-Spy from Kernel Panic. This is the greatest hits. It's going to give us a new and improved FlockU firmware, a detector, a sort of hot and cold fox hunting firmware that was really a big hit with the kids running around the house playing hide and seek, and the SkySpy drone remote ID decoder. For this video, we are going to assume that you already have the toolchain set up. If you need help, I'll link down below the original FlockU firmware install video. It shows how to set all that up. If you don't want to go through all that, there is another short video on just web flashing the FlockU firmware, and we'll link that down below as well. So to catch us up on the process, we're going to go to the GitHub. We're going to go to the OUI-Spy Unified Blue. We'll right click on that code button and download it. Then we'll go ahead and put that where we want to install it and unzip the files. Then we're going to take a minute and just look through the README here. If you have the official firmware, that piezo buzzer is already installed on the GPIO pin 3. The NeoPixel LED is built into the Xiao ESP32 along with the boot button. The boot button is marked with a B and it's very, very tiny right beside the USB-C. Now what we're going to do is we're going to launch our Anaconda prompt, and we're going to go to our virtual Python environment that we set up earlier. And we'll navigate over to where we have put the files that we want to install. Once we're there, we're going to start just following the instructions here on the GitHub on the side. We'll rearrange so that those are visible here. But we'll go ahead and just do the pip install of the ESP tool and the PySerial. And we'll wait for that to finish here. Once that's done, we'll just move on to the next step, which is to check and make sure that the firmware is in the location that we expect it to be, and it was already there in the download. For the next step, we'll run this convenient script, which is going to detect the board that we have and go ahead and deploy the firmware to it. If it's having trouble detecting your board, you may need a UART bridge, so go over to Silicon Labs and grab one from there. And look at the FlockU main video if you get stuck. In my case, I still had the web server running from one of the other firmwares, so I needed to go to that prompt and shut that web server down so that we could get access to this COM port. So with that closed, we'll go ahead and try again, and everything's proceeding nicely. When the board first boots up, it'll launch a Wi-Fi access point that we'll be able to connect to. It'll be OUI-Spy with the credentials OUI-Spy 123 shown there. And once you've selected the firmware, you'll be able to hold down the boot button for a couple seconds, and it'll relaunch it back into this where you'll be able to select a different one. The first one we're going to look at is the fan favorite FlockU firmware. So we'll go ahead and select that. The board will restart, and it'll relaunch a new Wi-Fi access point, and we'll show connecting to that right here in a second. And the credentials are, of course, shown in the README here. It's going to be FlockU and FlockU123. So we'll go and we'll find that network and put FlockU123 in as the password, and we'll connect to that. Once we're connected, we'll go to the same address, that 192.168.4.1, but this time, instead of the bootloader or boot launcher, it'll have the FlockU web server. Now, one of the strong convenience here, in addition to the updated signature files for the FlockU that's provided with this firmware, is that you can now access this from your phone. You don't need a laptop, you don't need a cable, you're connecting over Wi-Fi. So now we're going to hold that boot button down, we're going to reset the device, we're going to reconnect to the bootloader Wi-Fi access point, and we're going to select SkySpy, which is the drone remote ID firmware. Now, one thing you'll note here is there are no credentials for the wireless access. That's because this really does require the Wi-Fi to be useful for getting those drone remote IDs. So it just wouldn't really make sense to disable that. So here we are showing it is connected with a wire to the laptop, but we'll go ahead and we'll launch that interface. And then if we had those remote ID detections, we'd start seeing plots here on this screen. Once you get everything set up, it's pretty straightforward to launch, but if you're having trouble, we do have a video showing just the SkySpy firmware install and that launch process. And again, even though we have no affiliation with these projects, if you get stuck, reach out and we'll try to help the best we can. Now we'll hold down that boot button again and we'll launch the launcher again, and we'll go in and we'll select the Foxhunter this time. This was really a lot of fun. It's sort of like a Geiger counter, if you will, for how close you are to the device that's matching the signature. So we picked a couple earbuds and we had the kids hide around the house, and they took turns trying to find each other. It was really pretty good fun. So that said, we'll go ahead and connect to the wireless access point. And we'll see the configuration screen here where we can type in those MAC addresses that we want to try to fox hunt. One thing to note is once you had the settings in, they were relatively durable. So I think you had around a 20-second window where you could log back into the access point and change the configuration. Otherwise, you'd hear a beep and then it would go to the active scan mode. And even though the README said that you could select from a live Bluetooth scan or enter the MAC address manually, I didn't see where you were able to do that scan live. Here in a minute, we'll show you a quick Microsoft tool that'll allow you to do that scan and select the devices you might want to look for in the Fox Hunt or the Detector. We'll see in a second. So we'll once again hold that boot button down. That'll restart it and put it into the firmware selector mode. We'll connect to the OUI-Spy access point here. And then this time we're going to select the Detector. So this is just a alert versus sort of that hot cold that the Foxhunter will do. You may notice it does have the access point specified, but there's no credential for that. So we did poke around through the code, and it was the iconic phrase from the movie that the hardware references. So snoop onto them as they snoop onto us is the credentials here. So we'll log into that access point for the Detector. And while we wait for that, you'll notice on the next screen, once we're on that access point, there's a couple different options for how to configure it to detect different devices. And one thing that's specific on this one is there is the option to make that a really durable change. So if you go down there, you can make it so that you'll have to erase and reflash if you want to change the targets. We did not test that out just out of laziness. All right, so we're going to show quickly. Here's a free Microsoft tool to do those Bluetooth scans that can help you identify some targets in your area to put into the Foxhunter or the Detector. And with that, hopefully you've appreciated this quick walkthrough of the 4-in-1 firmware. We appreciate the authors for putting it together.